You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey Jeepers, welcome to episode 121 of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I'm Kevin, the engineer, guy who, reads the instructions, uses the right tools, and generally follows those instructions. And across from me,
and I'm Scott. I'm the bison body build with the buck ankles and a constant mission to make Kevin laugh. That's an inside joke that some people will get, some won't. But hey, besides that fact, I'm the one that does not use a torque wrench unless instructed by Kevin. I kind of read instructions unless instructed by Kevin. And with all that, I, as we always will share what worked for us and what didn't. Remember, it's up to you to do your research, read these instructions.
And as we always say, please follow them.
I did not read my instructions to talk.
Sometimes that's obvious. Sometimes
Exactly.
that's obvious. Well, I've got to start off by saying, Scott, welcome home.
Yay!
He's been up doing the family holiday thing over the 4th, meeting with families, fiends, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
And all the positives and trials and tribulations of family.
Yep.
So
that's it. Yep. All right.
But you did talk to me a little bit about a bright spot.
Yeah, well, that was me staring into the headlights. But other than that, no, it actually was a fun trip. We all hope you had a happy, safe, and 4th of July. Because
count your fingers, count your toes, count your eyes. Oh, it's a little hard. Don't poke them out.
And touch your nose. See, we rhyme. We're Dr. Seuss's of Jeepland. So with that,
great. Now we owe.
Great. I can't do it. I for those of you who watched, I can't remember if it's American Dad or Family Guy. They said I got Dr. Seuss's typewriter, and it was like the sousaphone and all this kind of different stuff. And that my head went right to that. Thank you for he's derailing my train of thought. Welcome to the new year.
Yep.
No, but it was actually kind of interesting.
That was 6 months ago, by the way.
Yeah. Moving on. Yeah. Well, come on.
I'm not going to give you a break. I'm
No,
sorry. You never give me one.
You know what? I'm going to take it in stride. Remember, every word has its meaning.
I thought it was take it and cry.
That too. Every word has its meaning.
Yeah.
And I want you to read my lips very carefully.
No.
All right. So
They're behind the microphone.
So with that, God, this show's already off the rails. So anyways, I actually had a very interesting conversation.
It's an off-road show.
Well,
Gotcha.
yes, you did. Fist bump. Boom shakalaka. That just happened. So as we were trying to anyways, one of the campers made a comment about, they saw the Gladiator. And of course, time out.
Time out. Just for your information, folks, Scott's wife's parents own an RV park. And they were up at the RV park. Otherwise, you'd be going, why is there a camper? And a family.
So following the conversation, that's a friend and family joke within the family, following the conversation that I had in my head that the rest of you listeners weren't privy to.
We're working on that, though. We are
We're
trying to come up with that little mental microphone. So, no, God, can you imagine the squeal noises in that thing?
Moving on. Speaking of Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
Seuss. Jeez Louise.
And I'm leaving all this in.
Man, we're like 4 minutes and 46 seconds into this, and everyone...
We haven't even got the intro done yet.
The listeners are probably like, what?
And no, as far as I am aware, he has not been partaking of any illegal or mind-altering substances.
Everyone's like, this was his family show. When did they stop drug testing? All right, so... reset. Anyways, so we were up at the in-laws campground, and it's in the mountains of North Carolina, and it was kind of fun, but
Ding, ding, ding.
a little bit interesting turn of phrase, because every time we go up there, we've had Dory's Jeep,
Oh, you had all of them up there at one time or another.
we had the Charger, and this is North Carolina, where some of the locals, if all the body panels in your car match the same color, you're considered rich.
Yeah,
and
you were up there in the Glad.
We were up there in the Gladiator, and one of the campers, a nice guy, and again, he got to do that jab, kind of the, hey, that's a really nice truck that no one can ever afford. And I'm like, I'm not going to go into it. We have defended the Gladiator many times, but of course, all the other people, they ask questions about the Gladiator. It's like a UFO. Some people have seen them. There's actually another person there with a JL Rubicon there.
Okay.
But a couple questions were asked about the truck, and it was funny because some people pointed out, oh look, it's got little Jeeps on the wheels and stuff like that, and I'm like, yeah, those are called Easter eggs, and I get the Easter what? Okay. So, anyways. And I expound for a little bit about the is it heritage or nostalgia? Which is the correct word to use, or both would work, or interchangeable at this point?
Well, no, they're not, and that's the point. It's. I think the subject of the show we're going to do is going to be Jeep heritage versus Jeep nostalgia.
Yeah,
and you can interchange heritage and history in your mind if you want. For the subject of this show, they're going to be pretty much interchangeable.
Yeah, and the point is though is that I expounded on one of those two, whichever fits in the correct vernacular. But,
Right.
and I showed him about how when you turn the dashboard on, it changes from a military Willys to that. And another, we're going to call him Carl just because I forgot
Names are
his
changed to
name.
protect the innocent.
Yeah, that, and I have a really strong feeling that he worked in the automotive industry, either for a Japanese manufacturer or another
Yeah.
Japanese manufacturer.
Yep.
And so we got to sit and talking, and it was actually almost a 4-hour, very intelligent conversation.
Yep.
And he was an off-road enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he kind of pointed out, because, he picked up on my body language where it's like, I'm talking and being friendly, but, also talking about the LJ and other things, and, John Carl's
Yep.
M Series. He kind of understood that, or is it CJ Series or M Series? I always forget that.
For his is a CJ series.
And, he kind of understood that I am an enthusiast.
Yeah.
So I'm not
therefore, a
just-
dangerous animal when cornered.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were talking for a little bit, and he actually brought up an interesting point. He goes, I saw you point out all those little things, and it's something of my interest that I had an observation is that if you have to point out the nostalgia, you miss the idea of the heritage. Mm-hmm. And I kind of looked at him and I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, when the CJ came out, it was a rough and tumble Jeep that was bare bones, and it was a utilitarian vehicle.
Right.
And now everything's plastic, and oh look, you're driving a vehicle that was meant to be in World War II, but in reality, you're the grandpa's granddad's Jeep won the war. You're just some plastic monstrosity. Although I like them,
Yeah.
He said that, pound for pound, utility wise, they are a capable vehicle. But you're pushing hard the nostalgia, pushing hard the heritage of owning a Jeep, owning a World War II vehicle. That in me, it's kind of you lost that edge. You gotten fat.
Yeah.
And he even mentioned about the VW Golf.
Yep.
You
The
know.
history on the Golf and the GTI series.
It started out as a
Which,
peppy.
for those that don't follow the VW world, it was a sports version.
And it started out as a peppy little hatchback, it wouldn't win a V8 in a drag race, but man, it was a fun to drive vehicle. And then over the years, it got the dad bod of cars. It became heavy, and it sold the idea of the heritage of the original hatchback.
Yeah, there are ads for the new GTIs that show the old one in the background, kind of half shaded out. And it's like, yeah, they're selling nostalgia on that one. And that's my take on it versus heritage, which nostalgia comes from the heritage. And we had a long discussion. So we thought we'd kind of play that discussion for you guys because it was an interesting concept. What are you buying when you buy a Jeep? And what do we like, versus what we want? And the two aren't necessarily the same, we found out. And I look at the fact that, for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to talk about heritage and history as, all right, let's go right back to the war, to the Willys and the Ford Willys kind of body Jeeps, the early flat fenders. And what is the history / heritage there?
Right.
Body on frame, straight axles, okay, transfer case, inline drive, no front wheel drive,
Right. A lever to shift it into 4-wheel drive.
yeah, and doors that are removable, and those are some that did carry forward. All right,
Foldable windshield.
yeah, foldable windshield that disappeared for one series and came back, and then there's the nostalgia. Okay, is a Willys branded JL history, heritage, or is it nostalgia?
I think it's a little bit of all three.
I think it's nostalgia, the whole concept of Willys, because it's not made by Willys.
Right.
It's never been on a war front. That particular machine styles is not in the U.S. arsenal, never has been in the U.S. arsenal. However, it does have the heritage. It's still straight axle. It's still body on frame. Doors are removable. A little heavier than they used to be. The Willie didn't have doors to remove. You had to put the vinyl kit on it to put the doors on.
Right.
For the ragtop, the canvas kit. I'm sorry. Don't listen to me. I'm already saying vinyl and it's canvas back then.
Good old Cosmoline.
But why do we do that? Okay, what's the driving factor there? And I understand what the guy's saying. I can see exactly what he's saying, but I'm curious, listeners, what you think. Would you really want to buy, as your daily driver, a modern Willys that had no doors?
Yeah.
Let's assume we've got to throw out DOT regulations, and crash testing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, unidirectional tires on single leaf or 2-leaf springs, with a maximum top speed of 45 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Would you want to do that as your daily commute? I expect it to be kind of cute the first couple of times until you get stuck in a Florida thunderstorm or a Chicago snowstorm, or any other thing. And how about sitting in traffic here where 2 days ago I was sitting in traffic, looked down, and it was 104 degrees. Now granted, some of that was street heat, but that's still 104 degrees where I was sitting.
Yeah.
And with an open vehicle, no air conditioning.
Yeah, and a metal floor getting hotter and hotter by exhaust by the moment.
No heat, no insulation. You wouldn't be listening to us unless you were using your phone, and forget about having an onboard charger.
Yeah.
So where do you draw the line, between history, heritage, and nostalgia?
One of the interesting things that my father-in-law brought up was, he's a diehard Harley guy. Mm-hmm. And he was listening to the conversation. He goes, you both kind of make sense, because I remember being a fan of the Harleys in the early 60s, and then I remember trying to justify being a fan during the AMF years.
Yeah.
Where they were fixing them while they were building them.
Yeah.
And he goes, nostalgia and history can only get you so far, and if you have to push the thing everywhere.
Yeah.
And so he was on the idea of, he rode the Gladiator, and he goes, man, this is so much nicer than your JK.
It is, which is funny because, to me, your JK was palatial compared to my TJ.
Yeah, and the JK was a rolling living room compared to the YJ.
Right. So it's kind of an interesting concept there that, and I guess the guy's point was he kind of, I'm not going to say faulted, but kind of sneered, shall we say, at Jeep for selling based on the nostalgia.
Because he mentioned about the Jimny.
Okay.
The Suzuki Jimny.
Suzuki Jimny, folks, which we knew it here for a while as the Samurai.
Right.
Their little 4x4. And it's, I guess, pretty, in his book, and he's right, because believe me, I did quite a bit of Jimny off-roading in Europe. It's pretty bare bones.
It's sparse.
It's sparse.
Yeah,
because it does have a radio, though.
Well, because he talked about how, the Jimny stayed true, and it's very popular throughout the world, to its, bare bones, utilitarian, 4-wheel drive. But he was interesting because he said, what is great is, he goes, I wish they'd bring it over here. They're not, because it will never pass a safety regulation.
No.
But he goes, it will show people who drive Wranglers how nice they really are. People who well, I don't like it. It rides too rough. Yeah, drive this.
Right. True. True. We can get away with that here, though, very easily, because you can just turn around and ask people who think that the current JLs and Gladiators ride too rough, just find a Jeeper in your club with a YJ.
Yeah.
The older, the better. The less modified, the better.
Yeah.
Take them for a ride. You and I went for a ride on that CJ3A that John Carl had, and you remember sitting in the back seat of that thing as we got all the way up to 45 miles an hour, and it was maxed flat out.
Yeah, it ain't meant for 3 Bison boys, I'll tell you that.
No, it was working hard. But
Quarter-ton trunk, my left foot.
Well, I don't know. You had all of us up. That's only 1,000 pounds of cargo. Well, actually, a quarter ton. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying. It's a quarter-ton truck.
250 pounds.
Yeah. Oh, is it a quarter ton?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a quarter ton.
I want to make sure I had the math right.
2,000 pounds to a ton, so 250, and we were technically slightly overloaded.
Okay, because I always want to make sure, because, math with me, purple plus triangle equals green grass, so I have no idea about math. So.
I wish it worked that way.
The Common Core. Moving on. Different subject. Not this kind of show.
Very true.
But it
Very
was-
true.
but it-
So I guess I want to segue in here and look at our listeners. As guys, you've been great on Facebook. I compliment you on that. That's been fantastic for the following. How about you guys throwing us some of your thoughts on this one? Because I think this one's fun to look at it. We all know what we like.
Yeah.
But let's look back at why we like it. Do we feel like we've got some connection to, Omaha Beach and D-Day?
Yeah.
Or maybe the Burma Trail in India, trying to climb in the mud in the tanks, and that kind of stuff. Or is it we just like the off-roadism and the fact that we can get some comfort in the process? Is that good too? I mean, just be interesting to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, to me, it's got to have a little bit of the heritage and the nostalgia, and because otherwise you might run something other than a Jeep.
Yeah.
There are other vehicles out there that can go the same place as a Jeep can. I can tell you that when I had my Toyota pickup truck, and I had it before they were named, it was just, that was the Toyota pickup truck. It was available in two-door and two-door extended cabs, four-wheel drive and two-wheel drive, and
Pre-rusted or non-rusted?
usually pre-rusted, but it didn't show.
Okay.
And then you had the long wheelbase and the short wheelbase, and mine was short wheelbase, 4x4. Yes, manual hubs, manual transmission. I did, at my wife's insistence, have them add. Remember, they didn't come with air conditioning. It was always a add-on kit.
Yeah, the little blue square button in the dash.
And so it had that. And I tell you what, it was a lot of fun because that days, if you were off-road, you were off-road. It didn't really matter as much what you drove.
Yeah.
The Jeep guys would be there, and they'd had their Jeeps, which was still neat. But there was also the original Broncos, the U100s, and the little Toyota pickup trucks. And I can remember even four-wheeler remarking that the little Toyota would go anywhere a Jeep would go, and I proved that personally, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the thing they said is, and I like their comment on the Toyota pickup truck, and I know this is sacrilege to the Jeep guys, but they'll both get to the same place, but the Toyota burns so little fuel, it'll get you back. And there was some truth to that.
I would say them's fighting words, but I got to go get gas.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, and I'm just being honest about this, I think I've said it before, is I like the TJ because it's the last of the Wrangler series that comes the closest to the CJ, okay, which was what I grew up with.
Right.
And I love the CJs. Yes, I lived through the Ralph Nader years, and where the 5 was accused of being a flip over, which it could be in situations, and all of that kind of stuff. And if you actually look at the body dimensions and the shape and the lines, the TJ stayed true to those basic dimensions. If you look at a CJ7 and pull them next to each other, the front ends are different. And I'm on coils, it's on leaves. But, it's the furthest technical advancement of that dimensional platform. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
After that, and when you moved into the JKs, poof, she went up to not quite to the Bronco, full-size Bronco, the O.J. Simpson Bronco sizes, but in that realm. And I'm not against it by any means.
It saved Jeep.
It did. It absolutely did. But, it's not my nostalgia. I'll put it that way. So I'll be very interested to see what you listeners, what floats your boat.
Well, and that's a few things I want to touch on we'll touch on here in a little bit. You talked about how staying true to the platform. We had a conversation about what vehicles keep solid axles and what the SEMA builders are building. We'll touch on that in a second, because you said the Toyota guys sometimes will convert their IFS to
Back to the same thing you'll see in full-size Fords and Chevys that have ISS. The builders will rip out the IFS and go backwards to the solid axle.
And then the idea with the JK, they have sold those things hand over fist. And there's a recent conversation on the 4XE, or not 4, as a TJK post. Ed Martin, one of our Patreons, he's interested in 4XE now. And one of the posters put on there, hey, are they going to build a 4-door or two-door model? I can't find anything for it. I said, no, unfortunately, they're probably not, because 4 or 2 doors are only about 10% of what they sell.
Yeah.
4 doors are what people wanted. That's what they sold the most of.
Yeah.
And-
And I know we've actually gotten some argument from people. Oh, that's not what we want. Actually, it is. It's what you're telling Jeep you want by the dollars you spend.
Yeah.
And
You may personally not want it, but everybody else is.
yeah, but you're willing to pay for a 4-door even if you wanted 2-door. Which also they can't tell the difference between the person who walked in there plopping down their money for a 4-door because they have a pack of kids and they want to take the kids with them and do the family thing, and the person who wanted a 2-door but couldn't find the 2-door, with the model with the options, and went ahead and bought the 4-door.
Yeah.
So it's kind of one of those, what if you do and what if you don't? Because as far as Chryslers, they're looking at dollars.
Yeah, because they're there to sell vehicles. We've said this 1,000 times. Is they're sell vehicles and the nostalgia, not to create a war memorial.
Yeah.
Brutal, but it's true.
Yeah.
Because again, I say the JK might be the swan song because now the JL is all aluminum. Every single piece of that Gladiator. I mean, not every single piece. The hood, the doors, the tailgate, and all that, and the bed sides are all aluminum. And as much as I love that Gladiator, and I love the way it runs, and I love the way it rides, I do know there's a lot of electrical stuff in there.
Yeah.
Compared to the JK, again, the JK
there's
was a
an
TJ.
awful lot in the JK wiring wise.
Right,
I mean,
but it's even more in leaps and bounds. So now I joke that literally, I said, did I ever send you the picture of the center console cluster at night for the Gladiator?
No.
I make a joke all the time about being Darth Vader's bathroom.
Gotcha.
At night, I counted them. There are more than 35 little lights in the dash for buttons you can push at night.
Well, I'll throw one at you here that's a little weird. As you're moving into the JLs and the Gladiators, there's actually decreasing some of the wiring in them, but increasing the complexity, because instead of, if you go to my TJ, again, this is a kind of a last gasp of the older systems, you pretty much every gauge, every wire, well, not every gauge. In fact, the TJ, we're going to have to go all the way back to the YJ.
Yeah.
The YJ probably is the true last gasp there. If you had the light and the sensor feed to the oil pressure gauge was its own wires.
Yep.
And the
Cradle to grave.
Everything was its own wire. Even though some of the later models had ECUs, they went with the engine and they didn't really run the Jeep. They ran the motor. Now you go to yours and you've got all these little electrical subsystems that are on a CAN bus that talking to each other. So you basically are driving a 4-wheel drive computer network. Okay. Yeah. With a router, with hub.
Yep.
And the CAN bus is that hub. And yeah, the King system is generally speaking the ECU, but not always. Okay. Because you have ECUs, you have TCUs, you have
GEM modules,
VCUs, GEM modules, airbag controls. These are all little subcomputer and they all tie together on that CAN bus network. And as they do that, the good news for us is the wire count goes down.
Yeah.
All right. When TJ was an early adopter of that on the dash, I got 2 little connectors. That's probably 8 to 12 wires each connector. They're not a single line to a sensor, anything. And the bad side, and I think we've mentioned in other shows, is that, okay, what you're seeing on the dash and making your decisions on have been pre-digested by the computer and reporting as Chrysler tells it to report.
Ones and twos.
Yeah, ones and twos. So, that in itself is its own little creation. So, but is that a bad thing?
Right.
Going back to our heritage to versus nostalgia. The fact that you have olive green gauges with little Jeep stamps on them, well, they never had Jeep stamps in the old day, but, is that, heritage or is that nostalgia? I lean towards it's a nostalgia touch.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a mechanical gauge. It's not a Borden tube in the oil pressure. And there's no ammeter in the dash if you really want to go to true heritage history. But do we really want that?
Well, you also talked about name another vehicle that has that same level of nostalgia. Okay, they might carry 3 bars in the Mustang headlamps. And
Yeah,
it may
tail lights.
Yeah, they may kind of look like it.
Yeah.
Well, look at the Bronco. Yeah, it has the looks to me more of an International Scout than the actual Bronco.
I have to agree with you that
Yeah.
if you changed out the grill insert, the plastic insert, to a Scout style, it would actually look very much like a 70s Scout.
So let me ask you this: if I were to tell you that your 1990 Bronco OJ style
Yeah.
came with a 4-cylinder turbo or a 2.76 cylinder turbo
Yeah.
and IFS and a
It did come with IFS anyway.
I thought it was solid axle.
No, it was a split beam.
Oh, split beam. Thank you. I didn't think about that. But and I told you it had LED headlamps and a Sasquatch package. You'd be like, "You what?"
Yeah.
So did the Bronco kept the look of the nostalgia, but they kept none of the mechanical underpinnings.
Correct.
Like a Wrangler kept the look and the mechanical underpinnings. What's better?
Well, that's a good question, and we kind of talked on that before the show. That there is something to be said for modern powertrain, suspension, braking, but what do we buy?
Yeah.
Okay, there is a look to a solid axle vehicle. There's a stance. There's a difference in the front end when you see that pumpkin and the two tubes going across.
Yeah. Looks like a buff bison.
Yeah. Okay.
It does. No, I'm not making jokes, but it looks beefy. It looks mean. It looks aggressive. It looks utilitarian. It looks.
I think, and this is just my opinion, folks, if you take your JL and you go up a ridge and crest the ridge, and somebody takes a picture of that nose Jeep up with the wheel and the axle kind of twisted down a little bit, the classic, flex pose, and then go back and look at the World War II photographs of the Jeep in the fields, coming out of the ditch, crossing one of the rivers in France, you can see the history and the heritage. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's the great grandchild. Maybe not quite that far, but in car terms, it probably is.
Yeah.
But you can definitely see the resemblance that I don't think the other manufacturers have quite touched. And I think that may pluck at those Walter Mitty-ish kind of dreams of people,
Like the Norman Rockwell of Hot Rod.
Yeah, well, the Thanksgiving dinner painting.
Yeah.
And it's funny that the rest of the world sees us, and that's the way a lot of people try to live their Thanksgiving, because Norman Rockwell painted a picture of it. That must be the right thing for everybody else.
Yeah.
There is, and that very much is the nostalgia. Yes, it's based in history, but we really don't want the true history in our world, I don't think. And that's just my opinion. Would I go back to leaf spring suspension, ball steering, worm gear system steerings that had 15 degrees of free play, a non-padded spear me through the heart steering column if I was in an accident?
Metal dash. Yeah, man, in Metal Dash, we died like men.
Yeah, we did. And the floor pans pre-perforated to drain water and blood. So do we really want to go back there? There are some who go out and actually do restore the old Jeeps, and then drive them in parades and around and take them on trails occasionally. But that's pretty much for the nostalgia. They're very capable vehicles, but I don't think anybody would argue that they're better, more capable on the trail than, a setup JL.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I start going back to a totally stock World War II Willys, and a totally stock off the showroom floor JL. How would they fare off-road compared to each other?
I probably, if I had to make an honest guess, very similar.
Probably with the exception of the trail width.
Yeah.
If you're trail riding in the Northeast where you're dodging trees, the Willys is going to have the...
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you're out on slick rock, lots of room for wide body, and where you're off camber pretty steep, the JL may have the upper hand because the wider stance means less of a rollover, less tip.
Well, all things considered with the same driver, because everyone say needs driver mod, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. I'm just talking about, theoretically, out of the back of the C-47 in one case and off the showroom 4 in the later case.
Well, on a little side note, though, I did have to
Yeah.
make a sidebar because this is the outlier that we haven't touched on. I hear people typing now saying, you're not covering this part. It's so cool. One guy drove his Willys from Washington to Moab. Mm-hmm. There are outliers, and me personally, I got the LJ with a 6-speed because I wanted to have that experience of driving off road with a 6-speed.
Yep.
Now, given my druthers, my bank account's full because I picked 6 good numbers. Would I own a CJ to go out there and have fun with? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking about, though, as your DD.
Yeah, no, no,
You know.
no. But I would love to have one because, again, on the nostalgia and history, I would be driving something that had a sense of that. So,
Yep.
I'm not.
But let me ask you, if you're going to that limit, Scott, would you get dressed up in World War II combat garb? Would you wear it with a pot helmet on your head, while you were wheeling? Would you
I'd probably wear the short? I'd probably wear the shorts and the pot helmet. Heck yeah! But one, it has no roll bar.
shorts?
It has no roll bar. I'm always in shorts, dude. Come on.
No, not if you're in uniform. You're not, unless
I know.
you're in the South Pacific.
Well, okay, touche. You got me.
My point is where does the heritage stop, and it becomes just a nostalgic point. And what you're doing there, no, I think it's awesome. And don't get me wrong, I love to see particularly the one that was entitled "Grandpa Crossing the Crack."
Yeah, that was great.
That was awesome.
Ear to ear grin on that guy.
Yeah, and but I can also probably bet that he may have been old enough to drive one, in real, when it was actually a real vehicle, not a nostalgia vehicle. Well, I guess it was a real vehicle.
I was going to say,
myself. But I look at this and I guess I see the heritage in the vehicle. And I really do see the heritage in even the most modern Jeep out there with all of its gewgaws. Is it going to get lost? Well, just like genetics, as time goes on, genetics gets diluted, it's kind of tough that way. And you can't always badmouth it. All right. I get it. There are those of you that quite happily would sit on, the folding lawn chair that used to be the seat in the original Willys,
right,
and with your butt about half an inch, if that, above the gas tank, in the pouring rain, driving with the vacuum wipers that went shunk. Come on. Chunk over to the other side.
Yeah. And meanwhile, you're in Florida, you're drowned.
Yeah. And you do that every day to work, and you'd be like the cyclist. And I'm going to go back into the late 80s, early 90s, the people who rode the bicycle to work. I had folks that did that.
There are people now at my work that do it.
And then they come in and they shower at the job site and then change over. And yes, those are hardliners, and they're those. But I'm talking about the vast majority of the folks who want a Wrangler, I think probably want it for that connection, the nostalgia, i.e. connection to the heritage and the history.
I'm going to, if it's okay, we're going to take a quick break because I want to go into the garage segment we have.
Okay.
And also, I want to ad-lib something, a sticker I thought I'm going to make, but it kind of goes on, it picks up where you left off. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back after these announcements. Hey Jeepers, it's Scott here from On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. Just a quick reminder about our Patreon page, YouTube page, and the 4x4 Radio Network. We also have some cool events coming up.
Yep.
Let's see.
Remember, Crawling for the Fallen's coming up in November.
Yep.
So that's the one you've got a little time to plan for.
Yes.
But if you can be down here in Central Florida, it's really worth the trip to come down and experience Crawling for the Fallen. It's a specialty event to raise funds for the families of fallen first responders.
Correct.
The other event coming up a little closer, and one that we're both going to, is up in North Georgia. It is Sheriff's Jeep Fest up in Pickens County, Georgia. That's northwest of Atlanta, just about on the Tennessee border. Just kind of
out yonder in the woods by the mountains.
Yeah, and it is. It is some of the most fun you can have up there with a bunch of Jeepers. I'm not saying that it's the greatest trails in the world, but it is cool, and my specialty on it, and I hope they ever change this, please don't change it this year, is the trails are unproctored.
Yeah.
You're on your own, and they open up a huge amount of land to the Jeepers, as well as having a wonderful central area with obstacle courses and vendor booths and, all the associated paraphernalia that goes along with it, as well as all of the goodies that you want to buy, T-shirts, hats, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The vendors are selling all kinds of neat stuff for your Jeep. And the nice thing is you can actually turn around most of the time and look at the obstacle course and see their stuff in performance.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see that yellow one over there? That's got our lift on it. Oh, he's on his roof. No. It's a pretty wild time.
Yeah.
There's a show and shine. There's usually a huge bonfire and music concert one night. It's just a heck of a lot of fun.
It's fun. So check that out. Both of them Off-Road United, I think that is.
Yep. Scrolling for the Fallen,
Yep.
Facebook.
And if you Google search the Jasper Jeep Fest, Pickens County, Georgia.
Sheriff's Jeep Fest. And that's Labor Day weekend, a couple of days before and after Labor Day weekend in September.
Yep.
And we will be at we may be at both of them. I'm not sure about the one in November yet. Chrissy's always
Yeah. She did ask if we would do the names again.
we will be doing the reading of the names.
Yep.
Yeah, that one's always a tough one, but well worth doing.
Yes, absolutely.
And so those are the up-and-comings we know about. You've got an event locally or something you'd like us to talk about or announce, send us an email, pop us a Facebook note or anything like that, and we'll be glad to share your upcoming event information on our podcast.
Absolutely. On the trail podcast at gmail.com. And on back to the show. While we're talking on this subject, I actually had a really interesting thought.
Uh-oh.
Well, Jeremy Clarkson, if you're familiar with the show Top Gear.
Top Gear, yes.
I think it's Top Gear. Yeah, Top Gear. He did his thing about
BBC
Land Rovers.
show, yeah.
Yes. And he goes, he's driving this Land Rover up this mountain, and he pulls over and he goes, here we have, a rock. And survivalists say that you can suck the moisture out of this rock to survive. But why would you want to do that? And he cracks a can of soda and starts drinking it.
Yeah.
Just like that. And says, when you can bring a can of fizzy drink with you.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to scene when he's on a different part of the mountain, and there's moss. He goes, you see this moss right here? Survivalists say you can eat this moss, and you'll survive up to 2 days. But why would you want to do that? He turns around to little sticks, and he splashes some diesel or something on it, lights it on fire, and does soup and a broth. And he starts drinking the soup out of the pot. He goes, but why would you want to do that? So your idea of, yes, you can have all this utilitarian and all this, but it's there if you need it. But why would you want to do that? Which brought me to my sticker I want to make.
Okay.
We've all seen it. It's on the back of the Land Rover. Nice Jeep, peasant. I want to get nice Land Rover. Take it off road. Or nice Land Rover, limey, or something like that.
No. I've got way too many good friends from Britain. That's
okay.
We're not going there.
So nice Land Rover, take it off road.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think you have to say it that way. You just have to. Has it ever been off the pavement?
Yeah.
Nice
Land Rover. Has it ever seen dirt?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I've been over there, and there's a whole cadre of Land Rover owners that are not the posh upper elegants who only use it to drive across the pastures, which, with their pheasant hunting, No, they're farm vehicles over there. Yeah. And you go see yourself in, and I find it humorous that the American advertisement has turned the Land Rover into a luxury vehicle. Okay. And you can argue that, take a look at the latest JL Rubicon and tell me it's not an equal luxury vehicle.
Yeah, it's so much.
Okay. But, you go over there and in Europe, and the aluminum bodied Rovers have been around for a long time, Land Rovers, and they are buried in farms. They've hauled hay. They've pulled fences. Yeah, they are as much a workhorse utilitarian vehicle as the Jeep is.
Right.
They went from all aluminum bodies with the spare bolted to the hood that you had to, the bonnet. You had to remove the spare tire with a Y to open the bonnet to service the motor. They're pretty much draped in plastic and all that kind of stuff, but down in their core, they're still 4-wheel drive, straight axle, inline powertrain, the tried and true. And there's as much heritage, history, and nostalgia in the Land Rover camp as here.
Well, I know some Land Rovers do have independent suspension, air suspensions, and stuff like that.
Different versions. You
Okay.
got to have to look at whether you're talking about,
Discoveries and
the
whatnot.
Discoveries and the Land Rover Defenders and the 40s and the 60s and series. And
So there's a lot more over there than there is over here.
well, look at the Jeep lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, we talk about the Wrangler on this show, but what about a Liberty? What about a
Okay.
Grand Cherokee?
Touche.
What about
Touche. Speaking of axles, before we
Yeah.
byline into the garage about the 4XE and welding, did you want to touch on SEMA and how they're the barometer?
Well, we were having a little discussion, folks, and I get what Scott's going at is, people in the discussion it came up with, well, why has Jeep stuck with the straight axle? The independent front suspension would really be better, kind of a thing. And I hear that
Sorry.
cough,
Did that come out loud?
Yes, and how about independent rear suspension? How about full on flex and all that? See how much better it rides, it handles, and they can flex off road. Look at the off road buggies in the races. You look at the buggies and they fly and they're 4-wheel independent. Yada yada yada. We get it. But I have an opinion, and it'd be interesting to get your guys' take on it. And one of the places, first off, Scott made the comment earlier. Let's frame that, which is Jeep's in the business to sell vehicles.
Yeah.
Not to sell. They use nostalgia to sell them, but they're here to sell vehicles. Just be honest. That's their business. They're going to sell what they think people like. Mm-hmm. And so therefore you can do lots and lots of market research, and that's fantastic. But they've already found out several times and several mistakes that what people say on the market research may not actually be what they'll plunk down hard, cold cash for.
Right.
So that's a business unto itself. What can I sell? What changes to the Wrangler would not only not hurt sales, but would increase sales? Hence, all of the cushioning and the stereos and the lighting systems and all that stuff. And the 4 doors is probably the biggest, most obvious. I don't think anybody would have answered I should say, I'm sure some did, but 4-door didn't make a big deal. Yet we ended up with 4 doors and their sales took off. So there's a place that auto manufacturers tend to look for, what would I call it? Crowd-based responses. That's a good way to put it. And that's the aftermarket. And not just the aftermarket sales, but fabricators, builders, the Chip Fooses of the world who build custom cars. They look at the custom off-road market and see which ones become the popular ones.
Right.
All right. Now, I'm going to ask you bluntly, is how many custom off-road builds do you see that are over the magazine, splashed on the interwebs, all of the meme pictures with independent front suspension? There are some.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of those custom builders are building straight axle vehicles with inline power plants. And why do they do it? Well, they'll start to quote the ruggedness, the this, the that, the whatever. But from a marketing perspective, the various automotive segments review what the custom car market is doing. And yes, I'm using the word car correctly here because it's the whole market. And they look at what is popular. Where else can you get massive amounts of potential client feedback for free?
Yeah. Well, you touched on something about what's popular. I challenge you to find a car manufacturer right now that doesn't have a form of forced induction.
Yep.
Where I work, only 2 vehicles don't have forced induction. Mm-hmm. The RX platform and the GX and the LX platform. That's it. There's just 3.
Yeah.
I know I said 2, but I can't count. Again, math. The rest of them are all forced induction.
Yeah. But that may be part of the efficiency curve. And I'm just saying that there's a spot out there, though, that when you look at, everybody was really, really scared when the JK was going to the JL. And Chrysler actually had to put spokesmen out there going, we're not going IFS, because the rumor world was, oh my God, it's going to have IFS. It's going to be and you know, where do they get the feedback that people like straight axles and the look of straight axles? I'm not saying it's the only place. Yes, they use all kinds of survey monkeys and that kind of thing and all that. But they also look at what we look at. And, you know, when you get Kenny Hawk, you know, a good friend of the show's, when he builds his rigs and builds them that tough, big monster, you know, image, the really industrial, quasi-military look, they pay attention, you know, and they go, oh, okay, look at the responses, you know, to this. And let's compare them over here to this one that was made, you know, on an IFS. I'm going to pick on Chevy, not that there's anything wrong with Chevy, but an IFS Chevy truck. Oh, look at that. You know, Hawk's build is, you know, 14 times more popular. Let's see why, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just another source of, unfortunately, Big Brother is watching.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not a bad thing in this case.
Yeah. Well, I think the big litmus test of this is going to be how the Bronco does.
Yeah, because the Bronco has the looks of the original Bronco to a point, but maybe not the chops underneath.
Right.
It's going to be a great on-road vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
We're already seeing all kinds of memes and posts about when it doesn't work off-road.
Well,
but there's plenty of equal time where Wranglers are stuck. You know, take a look at how many of them that I've seen with the Gladiators underwater. You know, but I wonder sometimes, you know, and I don't know, Chrysler, if you're listening, you know, I do notice little things, and that's, you know, me. I kind of look at the details. I don't know about the Bronco. I have yet to get close enough to one of them. Only thing I see buzzing around here are little Bronco Sports. But when the actual Bronco comes out to where I can get my eyes on one, a Jeep, your Jeep, okay, your Gladiator, it still has vent hoses to the axle going all the way up to the firewall. Mm-hmm. It still has its air intake up and above a wheel line where flooding is less of an issue. Okay. I had a Ford a long time ago where the intake was down behind the bumper.
Yeah.
Which meant if you got into water deeper than the depth of the sidewall of the tire, you stood a really good chance of ingesting water and hydrolocking your engine. You know, I know you can hydrolock a Jeep, so do you, Scott, but you have to, but you had to try. You had to have a wave come up over the hood.
Yeah.
All right. I see details in the Jeep that are not nostalgia, but are heritage.
Yeah.
Okay. There are vents, hard lines, water seals, travel limits. Okay. Mm-hmm. The bump stops don't self-destruct if you actually use them on the Jeep. But other trucks, well, the bump stop's there, and if you kiss it, that's okay. But if you actually start punching it up to where you're doing an off-road wheel lift, it'll split.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, just taking that full circle, there is some hidden history in the current Wranglers, you know, if you know where to look.
Well, one of the interesting things, I had a conversation with on one of the dealership pages. Guy, you know, posted a picture of the Sasquatch package Bronco because some dealerships are getting them. They're not for sale yet. I don't know the inner workings, but anyway,
they've gotten pre-release copies.
Pre-released, and of course, this is where the enthusiast and the purist and the fanboys collide.
Oh yeah.
And this is an interesting post I made.
Well put, by the way.
Yeah. Well, and this is how I did, because I try to be skeptic. And the guy posted, you know, all the Jeep guys came to check out this Bronco. This is the Jeep killer. Well, we've seen all the posts. We're not going down there. And one of the guys made a comment about how everyone praising the Bronco. Mm-hmm. And one guy made a comment saying, you know, what's not even out yet. How do you know?
Yeah.
And I posted on there. I said, well, unfortunately, fanboys will be fanboys, and that's all I put. I said the vehicle's not even out yet, and yet it's the best thing made.
You
on the
only
planet.
threw a gallon of gasoline in the middle of a bonfire.
Let me finish. So this one guy posted it, and I said, you know, and again, okay, previous post on that same thread, I think it's great. And I do think the Bronco is great because, again, it's competition.
Yeah, and competition causes growth and development.
Exactly. So that was a pre-comment. But it's the whole, Jeeps are dead, Jeeps are dead, Jeeps are dead, Jeeps are going to go away, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right. So I made the one comment about, it's not even out yet. Let's let it shake. You get the bugs out. Let's see what happens with IFS. Is Jeep going to go IFS? This was the tenure of my comment.
Right.
And the guy goes, well, the range has been out, so how long now? And it's the same vehicle. And I said, oh, yeah, and you see a ton of those off-road.
Yeah, well, and it's not the same vehicle anymore.
But that's my point, is that, okay, point taken, the platform of the Ranger's there. And it's like I always tell people, the Gladiator's the first year, you don't want to buy, it's mechanically the same as a JL. It's been out since 2018. Yes, right. Let's just be honest.
Well, and I think I'd not counter, but join in with a comment that basically what the Jeep has is its history and heritage, which can help drive the nostalgia for the buyer.
Correct.
Jeep didn't stop making the Wrangler, so it's an unbroken line. And that's one of those things of that unbroken heritage line going back to, even if it is the ancestor, not the current Jeep, you have that unbroken line. Broncos was broken.
Yeah.
All right. There's why did it stop making it? If it was such a great vehicle, why didn't they just keep? I get it, and I think that's in the back, unspoken with a lot of people. Is I'll give Jeep, no matter who's owned them, the credit that there have been lots of opportunities to drop the Wrangler line. Okay. And they chose to always keep it going and keep the history thread alive. No, I'm not trying to say that the modern JL is a Willys, and yes, folks, I know the purists in you, as Scott used the term, will be, you need to call it. No, I'm talking about the whole group, the Willys, the Fords, the World War II versions. And there was 6 different variants and probably 100 sub-variants, depending on if it was a naval or an aircraft. Do you know they actually use those things on aircraft carriers as tugs?
Yeah.
So I get the whole idea here that there's sub-variants, but there is that spark. It's how do you tie yourself to, how many times have we heard, my great-great-grandfather came over on the Mayflower. Yeah, what we do. But it's a point of pride to that person.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things about a Jeep owner is you have that point of pride. No, I'm not driving the discomfort of an old rambling Willys, something straight off the beach, or was on Iwo Jima during the or Raval or any of those places. But I do have that lineage, that mental ability to touch back to it. It's in the 7-slot grill. It's in, the arrangement of the headlights, whether they're square or round, the whole thing, the external spare tire.
Yeah.
All right. Let's face it. That's kind of iconic, even if it's not there, one model or another that has that tire hanging out there. I still think they should have made a step in the bed and put yours on the side just to keep it going on the Gladiators. But that's just me.
Well, and coming full circle in the show before we get to the 4XE.
Yeah.
I can't remember if we named him Paul to Protect the Innocent. And this is the one thing that I wish I had this comment when that dealership life thread came up, is that, and this is why I think he worked for a manufacturer. And he goes, the reason why Jeep has gotten it right for so long and the unbroken, because we talked about the Bronco too.
Yeah.
And we shared the same opinions on it, is he goes, a worldwide manufacturer known for its dogged reliability resurrected its flagship off-roader to tackle it in modern times and failed. The FJ.
The FJ.
And what makes, and again, economic times are different now, but they're not. And he said, Bronco did it right by offering convertible. That was a problem with the FJ. It didn't have a convertible option.
Yep.
And it didn't have 2-door and 4-door options. Time's going to tell. That it's going to be the litmus test if people adopt and embrace the IFS, because if they do, Jeep might be in that situation where it might come time.
Well, if it is adopted and accepted by the public,
yeah,
then yes. Okay. The thing is every time Jeep has made that move, because, they tried a couple times. Ford went IFS, GM went IFS in the 80s. Everybody, and Jeep was headed the same way. But for some reason, the public reaction was really negative, really negative. I mean, everybody bemoaned Ford going to their independent swing arm suspension. Yeah. Okay, I forget what the phrase now. I can't remember.
Was it the split I-beam?
It was a split I-beam, but it was a differential in the twin I-beam. They love the twin I-beam in the two-wheel drive trucks, but they got away with it on the Ford. And Chevy went true IFS and got lots of hate, but not where it counted. Okay. It didn't affect sales. Okay. Let's face it. That's where the numbers really, because if you take a look at those transitional years in the Chevys, GM was not playing too big of a risk, because I can remember the 80 Chevy trucks coming out with IFS, and they still had the bolt holes in the frames for putting leaf springs back on. They could have converted the assembly line fairly quickly had it really caused a nosedive. But every time Jeep's even mentioned IFS, Wrangler sales have dumped.
Are you sure they wouldn't jump back up to try and get the last of the true solid axle?
Well, that's not what was reported when I did my research.
Okay,
that there was a negative. They said it was a very, very, very negative. I'm sure once it had actually been posted, it was going to happen. That yes, there'd probably been a buyout of them, and then they'd been all the IFSs would have been sitting out there, and you'd be looking at the off-road manufacturers now having straight axle conversion kits.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, even when they rumored it before, a lot of the comments were, "Oh, don't worry, someone's going to come out with a straight axle conversion."
Oh yeah, that'll be given. That'll be given. So anyway, it's kind of an interesting concept. It's an interesting wander down, history, heritage, nostalgia. Really, of those, only one of them is under our control and our choice. And that's what we choose to be nostalgic about. History exists. Heritage, well, you can show it on the paper that from the Bantam all the way to the Gladiator, there's an unbroken chain of that 7-slot grill. That's heritage.
Nostalgia tugs at your heartstrings.
Yeah. But nostalgia is what's in the end buyer's mind, is what makes it tick for you. For me, it's not really the military heritage. It's I can go where I want to go,
For me, it's the bad boy heritage.
That's great.
Cruising down with my hockey jersey, my mullet in the wind.
Whatever works for you, Scott. Whatever works for you. Well, we're coming up on an hour. Do you want to just hit a very short garage segment? Because
I can't remember what brought up the subject, but was it Paul that did it? I can't remember. But talked about if you had to do a trail repair on the 4xe, because we just did the story. Because I think
this is this is a follow on of the story that we just did last show, which is the 4xe.
And I think he actually listened to the show because, again, later on down the road, we were in the office enjoying an ice cream sandwich, and he mentioned, I said, I got a question for you. What would you think if you needed to do a trail repair? Because I remember the old days you used to weld the steering back together or weld the knuckle. Can you do that on a 4xe? And I went, I'll have to get with the engineering department on that.
And it was funny because Scott and I kind of hammered it around far more than we have time with you guys here. But it boils down to a couple of things. Number one, this is probably the biggest one hanging out there. But if big if here, folks, Jeep followed its normal way of doing wiring and systems, the electronics are probably pretty safely isolated away. And I think he was specific talking about doing a trail repair requiring welding.
Yeah.
Obviously, nutting and bolting is fine.
Yeah.
Welding on the 4xe, that is a really, really, really open area of concern.
Yeah.
I can disconnect a battery, which is smart. I can disconnect my ECU and my TJ, which is also a reasonable precaution. Mm-hmm. And the reason I do that, folks, is, and I explained it to Scott this way, welding is an electrical process. All right. It's a current flow. Something can be on the side of the current flow, like a bird on a wire, and not suffer any damage. But if somehow it becomes the pathway for that current flow, it's toast.
Buck legs.
Yeah. So in other words, if you had a bird doing a split between broken ends of a power wire,
Ow.
it's fried chicken. Okay. So how do
Nothing but feathers.
Pretty much.
Feathers.
Pretty much. So how do you prevent that? Well, that's the reason you pull a battery out. And you don't have to remove it from the vehicle unless you're really paranoid and welding near it, in which case the hydrogen gas is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
We were talking about, well, how does the electricity know which way to go? And this is an old adage that hopefully if you guys have paid any attention to any engineering, science, repair tactics, you know that a automotive vehicle uses the steel of its body and frame as the return path for the electricity. Electricity has to flow in a loop.
Yeah.
From the positive to the negative, although technically the electron flow is from the negative to the positive, but we're not going to go.
In the world of DC.
Yeah, in the world of DC for what we're doing. Now, the computer, the lights, the gauges, the sensors, the injectors, all that fancy stuff, the ECM, the PCM, the TCM, the BCM, the GEM module,
ICMB.
Are all plugged together with...
You just threw me... connectors.
wires.
That too.
And what are wires made of, folks?
Copper.
Copper. Now, this is the one thing you probably don't remember from high school, but there is a table of conductivity, or conversely, a table of resistance.
Okay.
There are, in the metal series that will flow electrons, flow current, you have a hierarchy, gold being the least resistive metal to current flow, silver being second. When you look at it, number 3 is usually listed as copper.
Yeah.
Steel, it's on down the table.
Yeah.
So you have an opportunity, if your electrical component is tied to the chassis and its copper wire is a shorter, lower resistant path back to a battery or some other connection point, for welding current to seek the path of least resistance. I'm sure you've heard that quote.
Like me on a Saturday.
And it goes through the device, and the device lets the magic smoke out. Or if it's a lot of current through the wire lets the magic smoke out, and you end up with charred vehicle. So hence, you unplug things that are really necessary if they go...
Yeah.
A copper wire may have a lower resistance, but if it's not connected at both ends, it's not going to flow any current.
Right.
Well, not really sure how that's going to work with the battery system.
Yeah, because to disconnect, this I do know, disconnect the battery pack from any kind of hybrid vehicle, you have to disengage and disable the system, and that takes a laptop.
Right. So when you look at that, does it mean you can't do trail repairs? I don't know yet. It should be well isolated if you follow good welding practice. Now, this is key here, and we've never discussed this, but trail repairs should be done so that you put your ground clamp as close to the point you're welding. If you can visually see the distance between the clamp and the brake that you're welding, okay? But that's a double-edged sword. It takes technique. When you strike your arc, do not strike the arc on the broken piece that's not hooked to the ground clamp. Start on the side that the ground clamp's on, and then you can bring your arc across because you will establish a current path. This is where most components probably get blown up, and this is my opinion. But if you have a ground clamp on the left side of a broken steering rod, and it's broken in 2 pieces, you stick them together, that sticking them together, just holding them there, doesn't guarantee that there's a current path. And if you strike your arc on the right side with the clamp on the left side, how's that arc current flow? That millisecond, because milliseconds all it takes to fry components. It goes down the right side till it finds a connection through a connecting, bolt and around through the frame, maybe through the ground and the copper wire across over to another component that's grounded on the right side, which then comes back across your suspension system and back into that rod where the clamp is. You ever think about that? It'll confuse you.
My mind.
Well, that's exactly what the components do that are along that current path. So there's some technique there. Quite frankly, if it was me and I had a 4xe and I had a damaged component, and if there was any frickin' way possible, I'd take off the component and weld it off the Jeep.
Yeah, no, that's safe.
That's the safest answer that I can give anybody there at the moment. Yes, they had to design the battery systems and the drive systems to be as isolated as possible, but you can't think of everything a guy who's just broken something on the trail and is fixing it by clumping together a bunch of car batteries and a ground strap and a stinger.
I just thought of something.
Oh, God, and he's got that tone of voice.
Are you listening, Jeep? You have the capability and the technology. 4xe Trail Repair Edition with a built-in welder. Make all checks playable to On the Trail Podcast at gmail.com.
No, let's just go straight to Scott on that one, because I'm sitting here going,
Let their engineering department figure it out.
what happened to him? Well, he tried to plug into the battery.
Warning labels is their department. I just came up with the idea. Okay.
Yeah. I'm afraid that would have been discovered on a trail way too quickly anyway. Right now, this engineer is going to recommend that, no, you don't weld on a 4xe.
Yeah, no. Just take the part off.
If you can help it, take the part off, repair it off the Jeep, and then put it back on.
Yeah.
If you can't, and it's one of those, I'm not getting out of here and the wolves are howling kind of a thing, you do that
Didn't
pretty
need
well,
the
Scott.
soundboard for that one. Boom shakalaka. Not a wasted education.
That you do kind of think about your welding first and think about where the current flow is going. Make sure that the shortest path. First off, you get a better weld if your ground clamp's on a clean surface close to the brake that you're welding.
Yeah.
Second of all, make sure you don't inadvertently create a short system, that will send current around the long way. Or, if your thumb and pinky were being welded together, you want the current to go between the thumb and the pinky, not around the back of your hand. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so, if necessary, use your technique, strike your arc on the piece with the ground rod and move over to the joint, establishing that connection. Most of the time we tack and we weld without thought to that, but it is something important when you're dealing with a vehicle with the potential to go the whole vehicle. You let the magic smoke out of a 4xe, you might as well write another check to Chrysler.
Part of the insurance company for your deductible goes, hey, it's totaled.
Well, whether or not insurance will cover it if you had to weld.
Insurance covers people leaving not properly latching their T-tops, okay?
Okay.
As we always used to say in the Bondu Boutique, insurance covers stupidity.
Okay, well, that's almost a given. It has to. Most accidents are the result of either one or both parties' stupidity, so I guess you're right. So anyway, folks, I don't want to belabor that point, and if any of you out there in the techie world or body shop world have better information on the 4xe and its tolerance to welding, if you've got a report from Chrysler before you service one in an accident and it tells you, do this before welding, I'd love to know about it, because that would be some of the best information that we could pass on to everybody else.
Send the PDF.
Who's considering buying a 4xe but are like, well, what happens on the trail if I bust it? Because, let's face it, that's the Jeep world.
Hey, watch
Modify,
this.
wheel, brake, fix, repeat.
Yeah, it's kind of like fix the Jeep and it's broke again.
Yep. Yeah, so.
Well, folks, we hope you have a wonderful rest of the July.
Yep.
Man, this year.
Stay cool if you can.
Oh, yeah.
And our friends out in the western side of the U.S., ration your water. Try and take care of yourselves.
Yeah.
I have never seen the reservoirs that low. It's frightening. It's scary. On the other hand, I can't help it. It's just me. I looked at it and go, God, look at all those neat places I could wheel right now while it's dry. Except in the Bureau of Land Management come out. What are you doing out here?
That's okay. We went for a slight walk, and it's a walking trail. And I'm looking here going, I can get my Jeep up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang right I could.
Anyhow, we hope, as we said before, we hope you all had an enjoyable 4th. We hope life is improving now that we are easing off of the restrictions from the unmentionable. Mm-hmm. And we look forward to 2 weeks from now. Oh, one last note.
Yes, I forgot. Just getting ready to say it.
For those of you in the Nashville, Tennessee region, I'm coming up there. By the time you hear this show, I'm going to be en route. If you see a black and silver Super C towing a little black Jeep that is slightly altered in the back, pushing as hard as it can to get that big monster, up Highway 40 and into the Tennessee region. We will be at one of the parks. I wish I knew which park it was, to the west of Nashville, but not really far, probably about only 10 miles outside of the Nashville city limits.
Yeah.
We're not really going for a Jeep event this time, but since the Jeep's easier to tow, it's going behind the RV. Mm-hmm. If you see me out there, I'll try and wear the T-shirt as much as possible. Feel free to wave and say hi, and if maybe some of you are out camping in the same campground, I look forward to seeing you guys out there.
Yeah, it'd be easy to see because his Jeep will be the only 10 you see.
I have no idea.
Get it? Hey, that's the only 10 I see. Your Jeep. Okay. Slightly altered. Oh, man. I wish we didn't lose the cricket son.
Well, and on that note, folks,
it's time to lock hubs, put the Jeep in 4 low, and hit the trails. Bye.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precautions, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.